That might be a little bit better. We may actually have some sound now. I hear myself talking. This is a good sign. This is a very good sign. I hear myself talking. Okay. And then we incepted myself, and that was a fun time for everyone. Everyone, I say. And by everyone, I mean, oh, hello. There is somebody watching. Hi. Not sure who it is yet. Sorry about the 30-second delay. So it goes. All right. We have tweetered myself. I'm going to open this. I'm going to open the Streamlabs dashboard as well. Sorry that you're looking at like the side of my face instead of the whole of my face. Log in to get started. Don't mind if I do. Log in with Twitch. Yes. Recent events. Awesome. Hooray. Okay. So, yeah. Guess we're good. At least I think so. Bum, 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 bum. Waiting for people to get here. 'Cause I'm so weird. Oh, I see notifications. On the Twitter. Oh my goodness. I think I forgot to tag Twitch Raid. Oh my gosh, I did. Son of a gun. Oh, well. That's cool. Let me go back over. 3 viewers. All right, so people are finding their way to the lovely Twitch stream. Hooray, welcome. Hopefully you should be able to hear me now, which, had you been watching a few minutes ago, you would not have been able to do. So it would have mostly just been me dancing around here, making a lot of this, but nothing actually happening. And I should probably put this other computer up here, but I'm not going to. So again, you're probably going to see a lot of this side of my face as I turn this way. Although Lord knows I could probably have my actual thingy up on here as well. Let's try it. Let's be adventurous. Let's be brave. Let's go see if I can get twitch.tv/spackiesmakitabrans. Yes, that's hooray. Now that is open. Oh, let's list myself as online, because also fun. Yeah. And I'm going to mute this. Bad kitty. Bad kitty volume. Bad kitty volume. And yeah. So anyway, just kind of waiting for people to get here. I'm about to read a story in just a minute. One of my infamous, I wrote it when I was 6.5, so clearly it's a work of staggering genius kind of things. That happens. Yeah. But anyway, sound off in the chat feed if you are here. Because hello. And stuff. I don't know what's going on in this, but anyway, just gonna hop around on social medias. Okay, so I might as well start. It's 2:09. Call the banners. Banners have been sounded. Kind of soundly sounds. Anyway, wow, I'm such an awkward being. I'm so sorry for that. But anyway. So I wrote this story, apparently Thursday, April 1st of 1993. So it was April Fool's Day. Why I decided to write about weather on that particular day, I don't know. I'm guessing it had something to do with the fact that Hurricane Bob had been like the one big hurricane to ever come to New England. Had actually just kind of struck us the year before that. And so it's like a big thing in my head. Of course, when I say like a hurricane struck us, I mean like we probably did the whole putting up of boards and stuff like that, but it was really much more of like, let's hang out and play card games while the wind is kind of strong outside. And that's really my recollection of Hurricane Bob. But anyway, so I wrote this story not long afterwards and just resurrected it. It says at the top the date and then weather, subject, a blizzard. And at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm just watching myself. Dun dun dun. So I'm gonna hop over to the Meteor Social again. Oh. Oh. Now I'm just making weird sounds and doing weird faces. So it differs from any other day. Really not at all. Yeah, not even a little bit. Not even a tiny bit. Do 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 do. Closing out of that because I don't need it. Closing out of this. Alrighty. So yes. Subject, a blizzard. Oh yes. Genius here. So I'm going to try to hold this so that you can actually see this beautiful illustration. I'm not really... Hit. OBS, where'd you go? Alright, so you can't really see much. It mostly just looks like a big white page, but... yeah, you can see... Oh! Alright, you can see like a little teeny bit, like right there. There's some vaguely diagonal lines. I guess that's supposed to be snow. Looks more like rain to me, but whatever. And a little house inside of it. And it says, "It is a blizzard outside." Oh, sorry, exclamation point. So, it is a blizzard outside. A blizzard is a type of weather. And then, of course, I have it, how to pronounce it phonetically here. Bull-ezzard. Yeah, so apparently it's pronounced bull-ezzard. Snow falls then. Very informative. So, snow falls during a blizzard. Let's try page number 2. Let's see how that does. Okay. You know what helps also? Switching back to OBS. There we go. Okay, yeah. So we see this beautiful piece of, yes, artistic wonder. Hooray. Rain is the subject of this page. Rain is water that falls from the sky. Rain makes puddles. Genius. Puddles have to evaporate. If they didn't, it would flood. I love the logic here is that, like, puddles have to evaporate because if not, it would flood because we can't have that. So it's not like, well, because the sun shines down and then evaporation happens because warm things happen and then the water vapor goes up and big cycle, circle of life, yada, yada, yada. No, but puddles have to evaporate. If they didn't, it would flood. Moving right along. I was going to do, like, a very dramatic page turn there, and then I remembered that this is very old. Because I am very old. Yes. And there we go. Oh, yes. Okay. So this subject is white ice on the back here. There actually isn't anything drawn, I think, from here on out. So I apparently got the words down, was going to go back and illustrate them at some point. Didn't manage to make it back. I'm not sure what was super pressing in my, like, 6.5-year-old life that, like... You know, I couldn't come back to it. Excuse me. But anyway, ice is a puddle that froze during cold weather. Sometime, '(s), we slide on it. Well, sometimes we do slide on it. Very true. Very wise. This next one. Sleet. Sleet is hard snow that comes down on the ground and crushes. Like... Dang, that really crushed. Or is this just like, no, wow, sleet crushes. I don't know if sleet actually does crush, so that just may be completely erroneous whatsoever. I mean, sleet is just kind of, it's kind of pokey more than anything. And I see we have more peoples here. Hello, peoples. I am standing here, well, sitting here, really, ranting on with the thing that I wrote when I was 6.5, because again, I found a lot of those. And now the whole world has to suffer for it. I'm so sorry. But welcome. And please sound off in the chat feed because I'm mostly, again, just sitting here talking to myself. So, yay. The next one, something a person from New England would definitely have to worry about. Typhoon. Yes. I really don't know what I must have been reading a lot of, like, Jules Verne or something that I was, like, legitimately concerned about these sorts of things, like a typhoon. Which, yeah, look at that. 6.5-year-old handwriting. You can't really see it. I'm sorry. Again, no illustrations. No time to come back and do this. Important, pressing 6.5-year-old demands. A typhoon is a tropical cyclone or hurricane of the Western Pacific area and the China Seas. Cool. All right. So it's a cyclone. That's nice. Snow. Snow is frozen rain. Not hard. It is light when it comes down. And this, of course, is important to differentiate between this and the sleet, which when it comes down, it crushes. Yeah. Awesome sauce. Next page. Clouds. Misspelled. There's a W in there. I wish Diane were here because, you know, cloud boy. But anyway. Clouds are a water vapor forming in the sky. That's apparently all I had to say on the matter. Water vapor forming in the sky. Moving on. Black ice. Black ice is ice that forms on the road. It is dangerous. It's danger-us, O-U-S, but I wrote it I-S, so danger is. And it does form on the road. It does form other places as well, but, you know, I apparently thought it formed just on the road. Just never anywhere else, just on the road. Specifically dangerous. All right. Storm. Apparently we're getting more vague as we proceed. So we've gone from things that actually affected me as, like, a small child to things I probably read about to I think I'm running out of gas here, and let's see what other weather-related words I know. Storm. Storms are not good weather. It can even be a hurricane. Well, now I've just completely gone off the rails, haven't I? Oh my goodness. Thank goodness, because you know what? That must have been the last page, because now we have about the author. Oh, sorry, with the words the end as well. So the end. About the author. Again, misspelled. Terrible spelling for a 6.5-year-old. About the author. I got Venezuela money from the Tooth Fairy. Wow, yeah, there's actually a story there as well. Yeah, basically my life was like a South Park episode for a little while, but I will tell that story sometime if someone wants to hear it. But on this last page, bye-bye, farewell, which again to you just probably looks like a giant white page with nothing on it. But yeah, so that's that. And now I'm basically out of steam because it is 2:18 and I am essentially watching myself streaming. Aha! Woot woot. I'm going to go over to Twitter, which means that I am also going to try to switch to this. Hopefully that did something. I really hope that did something. Come back. Let me see. Did it switch? Possibly. I don't know. There's a 30-second. Oh, there we go. It did. It worked. It worked it so well. Well, now I shall sit here and fan myself. And mostly just, you know, wait. But yeah. Well, such is the perils of streaming, I believe. Well, I certainly could try just reading some stuff out loud again, because again, that seems to be what I'm doing at the moment. Let's bring up Nyx. Hey, why not, right? Let me pop on over to here and see if I can. Notifications. Oh, why do I have Celtics running? Why? Why are you running? Go away. You're a bad, bad kitty. And photos are apparently running too. Twitter notifications. Explorer. Okay, no. So we can't do that, but that's alright. Video capture device going off for a second here. Just kind of poking around on the internet. Oh, I know what I can do. I will go down here. Let's do a hard return. And then I'm going to pop over and just grab some Nyx stuff from over here. Because while we have it here, might as well read it. Hang on just a second. Alrighty. Headset back on. Gonna turn on the video capture device and probably terrify myself. Alright, so let's hop back over to here. Okay, that was not what I went to get. Hey, get back. Copying this. Going to their place. And yeah. Okay. Cool beans. Beans of coolness. And we can actually zoom in this way. Boom, boom. And bring up. I can close out of that. I can close out of that. And hooray. Okay. So cool. I'm basically just going to hang around and read and see if anybody shows up. And if not, no worries. We will probably not do this again. Galaxina Grace. Yes, very true. One viewer. Yep. And it's me. But, yep. Anywho. So, Nyx. Just going to start reading. If people show up. Coolness. If not, I'm just repeating myself over and over ad infinitum. Can I, does this mess up my stream if I do this? Here, here. Yep, little bit. Little bit. Hit. 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 Okay. Alright, we'll just keep this big. Anyway. A tear trickled down my cheek as the sun knifed upwards, cresting the horizon. I hadn't cried in years, but then the last day of my life seemed as good a time as any to change that. The ornate metal thing hung heavy at my belt, and my fingers tightened reflexively around the lacquered, charcoal-dark wood of my staff as jeering voices echoed across the narrow harbor. I forced myself to relax as I found the source, just a couple of local lobstermen heading home from the morning's run, stumbling along the docks toward the village. Their catch would have been just as scant as it had during the past weeks, worse even, contributing to their foul moods. My clothing and bearing wouldn't be helping matters, standing sentinel as I was on the opposing cliff top. A girl in funny-looking clothes holding a funny-looking stick was an easy target. "Go home," one of the men yelled. His words slurred from drink and distance, but I was already home. So many years of moving place to place, but I'd found it at long last, and I wasn't going to lose it. Not now. Not when I finally had something, someone worth fighting for. The smudged dark lines of thunderheads began to gather over the distant sea, but I knew they were more than clouds. The darkness was coming, and I was the only one who could stop it. So cool. That was the first bit. And this is actually working pretty well, so maybe I'm gonna hop over and grab the second chapter, and we can just kind of... Well, it's not second chapter. It's the second bit here. And I'll keep reading this, and we'll go to about, like, maybe 2:30, 2:40. See if anybody shows up. Hup, 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 hup. Sorry, probably making you really nauseous right now. Okay. Interesting formatting, of course, as it came over from... Well, it came over from Google Drive, so I don't really know why there's any kind of weird formatting, anything going on. But anyway. So this is the chapter Island Gate, and so I broke everything up into not only, like 4 beats per chapter, but actually, well, however many chapters in the book, but then 4 beats per chapter. So it means that I have kind of a general sense of, like, what's going on in this part, this part, this part, this part. And I just know from experience that when I write a story beat, it's usually going to be, excuse me, about 5 pages long. That's just kind of my process. If anyone else tries a different thing, they probably are going to have a very different sort of process. And, sorry, I was just checking on the stream for a second there. So really, it's a matter of getting a feel for it. Again, whoops, hang on a second. Oh god, the 6.5-year-old book. Well, I mean, not 6.5-year-old book. I mean, book I wrote when I was 6.5 years old. But yeah. So yeah, it's just a matter of time. Like, for instance, I know that I typically write about 270 words per page. That's just my flow. So when I'm writing, I can actually kind of figure out where I am in the book and, you know, calculate that out mathematically. And that's actually kind of a good source of comfort for me when I'm writing. Excuse me while I take a drink. Sorry, you probably just got to hear me swallow from super close up. Good times all around. All right. Hip, hip, hip. Oh, hi, Galaxina, you are watching. Hello. So I'm just kind of ranting here. If you want to, you know, sound off, we can build something, you know, just sound off in the chat field there. If not, I'm mostly just acting like I'm ranting to myself. But anyway, so I'm just going to keep going I guess you've been watching up until now, so you know where I'm at here. Yay. Brain is mush on Sunday. But, okay, so this is Island Gate, and this one actually ended up having 5 beats instead of 4 beats because as I was writing it, you know, things kind of tend to bulk up. So I'm posting this on Wattpad without really doing any overall editing, like, whatsoever. So, I mean, that's kind of a risk because it means that I may run into trouble down the line where, like, I've bumped everything so far back that the whole story needs to be readjusted. So, you know, a little bit risky that way, and that's really why they say, oh, hi-yo. Hang on a second, let me blow this up. Yay. Okay, I see it said 1, and I was like, is that just because I'm watching it on my dashboard? So, wow, you've gotten to see a whole bunch of idiocy. I'm so sorry. Anywho, so yeah, let me hop back over to here. So anyway, yeah, so beats are fun. It's not beatsing another person, that's a different thing. But yeah, so this is the first real part of the story, so I wanted to set up something where it hooks you in, like it's coming off this bit where you see Mel, who's our protagonist, you know, standing on this cliff. You don't really know anything about Marblehead, Maine, which doesn't exist. I kind of pulled a Stephen King there. So, yeah. Hang on a second. I'm trying to do some window management right here. Just making sure I'm not missing anything. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, so we go from seeing Mel standing on the cliff. She's got something in her hand. She's got something hanging heavy from her belt, which we're going to come back to. And I had to be really careful because this is going to be something that's incredibly important. It's something I, when I was actually writing the story, I got to, or when I say writing, I mean like structuring it out. So when I was like going through it, at that point, of course, everything is still like super duper malleable. So you can like move things around and it doesn't go into territory of what's called retconning. Here, let me spell that out. But, hey, stop it. Retconning, which is being naughty, essentially, as a storyteller. And what it means is it's retroactive continuity. So essentially, and Star Trek is a big one for this, that essentially after the point that something has been established narratively, later on down the line, someone will say, oh, well, no, that's not the case, and explain how this was either like wrong or different or something. And it's basically very naughty because it means, you know, you're trying to make this point that you really didn't have the like, you know, the credibility essentially to establish. So if you didn't figure that out beforehand, you shouldn't be trying to like back-asswardly like readjust it right now, essentially. So that's the concept of retconning. So with this, when you're at that point when you're just writing the outline, you don't ever have to worry about that. And that's the greatest part about structuring a story like this ahead of time, because you can say, okay, I'm walking through this story. It's essentially you're writing a walkthrough of your story, and I can adjust this thing and whatever. So anyway, the thing that's hanging on Mel's belt is something that I didn't have in my head when I first came up with the story. And I did like 2/3 of the way through writing the outline. So I was able to go back and say, okay, I'm going to seed this right here in the prologue. So we know that this is a very integral thing that's actually going to pay off later. And it's actually called, like, you can call it like seeding or planting, very agricultural words, and then payoff. So yeah, you reap what you sow, essentially. So anyway, I feel like I'm gonna hiccup here in another second. If I'm being like super loud and obnoxious, please let me know. And again, I'm sorry I'm not meeting your eyes. Yeah. Did that just hop around between 2 different windows? I'm not entirely sure. Well, whatever. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep reading this. If you have any questions, let me know. And I should have had dual monitors, but I wasn't really thinking about that at the time. Yeah, we'll try it like this. All right. Sorry, seeing me dancing as I'm adjusting windows. It must be a wonderful way to spend your Sunday. I'm so sorry I'm not better organized, but I'm a writer. I do things, don't necessarily think about the things, I just do them. All right. I never understood how something could loom like the specter of death until I saw my grandmother's house for the first time. It hunched at the edge of the sea cliffs, gnarled as a witch's tree, 3 stories tall and covered in fish scale shingles painted black. The cursed thing even had a turret, and its triple windows glared down at me through the dusk like gray sisters. It looked like an ornate coffin, one that had now become my home. 2 weeks ago, I'd never given this place more than a passing thought. Actually, I'm going to pause and just say, do you want me to be like editorializing this as I'm reading? Because I can explain a whole bunch, which, being as how this is a stream that's supposed to be about story building, I can actually keep explaining. But I'm not sure if that's going to ruin your enjoyment of me sitting here and yammering. So that's up to you. Let me know in chat. And, again, I'll do what I can to oblige. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, I'd never given this place more than a passing thought. I'd never even seen a picture of it. Then again, 2 weeks ago, Mom was still alive. It wasn't until I was cleaning out her bedroom after the funeral that everything suddenly became real. Wait, hang on a second. Say I read something. Sure, okay, editorializing, hooray! Okay, this is actually gonna make it a lot more fun because, ooh, hang on a second, I'm gonna cough and I don't want to do that in your ear. Ooh, just looked like I was dabbing there. Oh, hi! Hello, Kiki. So, basically at this point, I was just, welcome to the stream, never been. I was just sort of reading through Nick's and kind of explaining various things about, like, how I'm structuring it, how I built it, like, different words that I'm choosing for why I'm doing everything, essentially. For lack of doing anything else. But if you guys want, we can actually switch over and build a story together, and I can kind of show you all the moving pieces so you can do it yourselves. So that is entirely up to you. Do what you want. You say, okay, I said do. That's all I saw was do. I am a special being. I am a special being. So, yeah, why not? Theoretically, I should be able to do polls. So, apparently, yeah, I should be able to integrate that very soon as well. But, yeah, why not? Let's just hop over and take a look at stuff here. Because this is, alright, I just copy-pasted this from the Google Drive. So, this is essentially right here. And on the one side over here, we have, like, everything that's kind of filled out. It's kind of like the explainy version of, like, any class type form you'd see, you know, if you're in like English class or whatever, then, you know, this is what the teacher would give you, and then the other side is the flip side of that, which you can fill out yourself. So, I mean, it's like, I don't want to say it's like there's no creativity in storytelling. It just means that, like, a wheel is round for a reason, right? We don't have square wheels because it's just not efficient. It doesn't work for what you're trying to do. So with storytelling, over the course of, like, however many, like, decades of, oh, hello, 5 people now. Hooray, everybody's coming in, party time. Sound off in the chat feed, let me know you're here. Sorry about my voice breaking like a pubescent teen. Not that I'm looking down on pubescent teens. Just, it's a physiological thing here. Hooray, yes, hooray! Yeah. So, okay, so again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. And this is something that when I was in film school, which I paid $250,000 for, which means I don't have $250,000 student loan debt being what it is. This is why I'm trying to, like, teach you guys this, so hopefully, like, you can do something useful with this as well. But anywho, so you don't want to go too far off of this basic outline because it's essentially like a ritual. You know, in ancient times, you'd have, like, the ritual of this thing or the ritual of that thing. And this is sort of like that in the sense that you're creating an experience for somebody. I mean, you're doing the intellectual version of creating a video game, because what's really, really cool is if I were to hook up, like, my brain right now to all of your brains in a non-creepy way, like in a very sciencey way, our brain patterns would essentially be mirroring each other. So as I'm speaking, you know, even if you were just, like, reading these captions in a different language or whatever, your brain would still be, like, exhibiting the same patterns of activity in the same places. So really what you're actually doing when you're telling a story is you're transmitting an experience. So really your words essentially are like creating a video game. I know this is all, like, very weird and ranty and abstract, but it's so really cool to me. I think that, like, So this is what you're doing. So everything that I have like right in here, sorry, I'm not trying to make anybody vomit here. So what we have in here is that roadmap. So sometimes when you're talking to various people who've been in the industry, storytelling industry for many years, they'll talk about building a story from plot versus building it from character. And the point is, it really doesn't matter where you start. Either way, those two things have to support each other. And honestly, you can't really separate them out, because like, who would Rey be, you know, if not in the most recent, well, not most recent now, but, you know, back one Star Wars movie, Force Awakens, right? Who would she be? It wouldn't be the same. You have to engineer them together. Can take a pause, take a drink, keep it right here. Sorry about this, taking the microphone away from my mouth. Oh my goodness. In ranting to oneself, you work up quite a thirst. It is true. It's actually kind of warm today too, so it is on. So protagonist is where I'm going to kind of start, because it's easier to just kind of say, all right, let's walk into this from the angle of protagonist just for the purposes. Yeah, exactly. Drink break. Again, sorry about the 30-second delay. It's a pain in the bit, but hopefully it'll be gone soon. But for, again, just working from protagonist, just because that's super easy at the moment. So the protagonist, it always has to be one protagonist, always. And just think about any movie that you can identify, or novels can be a little bit different because they have a lot more breadth, right? You could have a novel that's 250 pages long, or you could have like a George R.R. Martin, like heffalump of a book that's like 800 pages. So it's a little bit more flexible there. But at the moment, this kind of structure that we're talking about, it, when you're writing it out, it's between like 90 and 120 pages. And you want to make sure that you're hitting all of these specific beats. So I'm going to kind of start possibly, let me take a look here. Hang on a second. Switch around my desk. Come back here. Come back here, you naughty mouse. You naughty mouse. Okay. So we're going to start from protagonist. So the best way to think of your protagonist is in terms of their actual journey that you're making. And every story at its center is about one value being exchanged for another. So you can have something like envy that's like typically a, like, you know, that's a very naughty thing, because you wouldn't want to be like envying something of somebody else's. It can be destructive. But if you put it in the right context, well, maybe that is a characteristic or quality that has some use. In envying something that somebody else has, you may find out something about yourself. And no, that doesn't mean you can go over and take it, but it means like you could possibly use that to identify your own needs or your own goals, or something like, you know, lust. Lust is a bad thing. We're all naughty for lusting. But I mean, differences between lust and love, it's all contextual. It's all about the circumstances that you set up. So any quality or virtue, it's the same kind of thing. It's about proving that in one circumstance, this is an outdated quality versus here's a good one. Cut you a piece? Cut you a piece of what? I don't know. I don't have a cake for you. The cake was a lie. I'm sorry. I'm digressing and ranting, but that's why you're here, right? So protagonist, way we think of them is by identifying their fatal flaw. So it's the quality pie. Yes, pie is delicious. I love pie. It's almost pie season. I'm very excited for that. So their fatal flaw, which is right here. So it's the negative characteristic that's leading the protagonist to their death. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, you know, Back to the Future, the part 3, the train tracks and it's running out and you're going to run off the end of the tracks, but that's a good way of visualizing it, right? So it can be emotional death. It could be a physical death. It could be just the ending of something, because at a certain point in life, there are a lot of second chances for so many different things. But sometimes, yes, pumpkin pie. Oh my gosh, can't wait. I'm going to do a pumpkin carving video and it's going to be so much fun. Cats are probably going to get everywhere. Fatal flaw. Sorry, I have the attention span of a mayfly. So it can be an emotional death. It can be a physical death. The point is you're coming to that point where there are no more second chances. And yeah, Percy Jackson, exactly. It's very, very mythic, because all of our storytelling, like patterns like this, actually come from ancient Greeks. So it's super duper cool because all of this like intellectual technology that's essentially like software for your brain has been passed down through culture, like more or less preserved for thousands of years. So has anybody here seen Wonder Woman? Yay, no. Because I don't want to spoil something, but there's like something super duper 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 cool at the center of it that goes back to like the great granddaddy of like Greek storytelling. So it's essentially, and I don't know if I'm really giving anything away, so just kind of la 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 for a bit until you see me flailing if you haven't seen it and you want to. But the core of the story is about love versus strife, right? So Ares, god of war, versus Diana, who has to learn to like be embracing of everything. So this ancient Greek who is like way back before, like if there's like the granddaddies, there's like, you know, Aristotle's here, and this is like, I can't remember his name, but he starts with an E, and he was, you know, basically the intellectual granddad. And he said that, you know, everything in life is about this constant battle between love and strife. You know, strife is tearing everything apart, love reunifies, and that's the great cycle. That's the engine of the world, essentially. So for Diana, she starts off very aggressive, right? She's so ready to go to war. She's going to kick some ass. It's going to be awesome. And that is super cool. We do want to see that, which is why we have the movie. But by the end of it, she's realized this isn't the way. She has to integrate. And I just thought it was brilliant because it just, you know, here you have this idea somebody came up with thousands of years ago, and you see it as like the heart of this new story. So anyway, super duper cool. Okay, now I'm going to flailing. So in case you haven't been listening, now you know to tune back in. Hello, welcome back if you plugged your ears and did the la 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 dance. So let's get back to Fatal Flaw. So negative characteristic, leading the protagonist to their death. Whatever it is, it's their last chance to ever be happy or whole or, you know, not dead. And their time's running out. They have to know to take this, but how do you avoid something that you don't know is coming, right? So this whole story structure here, again, sorry if I'm screaming, this whole story structure here is about knowing, it's about teaching people how to find that path. So when life is super like poo-poo boom-baladi, it's terrible, things are not going right, how do you identify it? How do you see what otherwise you wouldn't be able to? So Fatal Flaw is something that the character themselves, they're not going to know this until basically most of the way through the story. And you also want to make sure that you're kind of careful about this, because you really can put it like, well, when I say you're careful about this, you can put that right out there. And sometimes you want to be what's called textual or on the nose, which is that it's like someone's actually saying it rather than like subtext, which is like, we're not talking about it, but we're talking about it. So for a Fatal Flaw, you know, you can put that right out there at the very beginning. You know, Diana in Wonder Woman, again, I'm not spoiling anything too bad here for those of you who la-la-la'd. Not sure if it's anybody, but anyway, you can see that she has aggressive impulses. She keeps running away and trying to go get trained. This is what she wants. But ultimately, you know, if she went down this path, this would take her into Naughtyville, which is, you know, Ares land, essentially. All right, so Fatal Flaw, I think we've kind of like banged that on the head. The flip side of that is the noble virtue, which is hmyah. So this is the new characteristic that's going to basically save the protagonist, rebalance them, make sure like everything is happy in Happyville. And the way that you can kind of divide these up, I put these in very specific columns because those two are in columns with like the home world, which is, you know, the protagonist's home zone. So think of Star Wars Episode 1, A New Hope, right? So Luke is on Tatooine, and you get the sense right from the very beginning, he has totally outgrown it, right? He is ready to leave the farm. He's going to go join the Resistance. He really wants to be like his buddy pal. He doesn't want to be bullseyeing womp rats back home. So Luke's home world is essentially all of Tatooine because, you know, for all of us, you know, we don't really go anywhere else there in the story. So that homeworld there. The magical world is, again, the flip side of that. So that's the world beyond the protagonist's homeworld. So that's, you know, everything outside of the tiny, tiny pond in which our protagonist lives. Excuse me while I cough. It has been raining lately, And the allergies, they have been kicking up. All right, so magical world, everything beyond that. So the magical world is the place in which the protagonist is going to embrace this noble virtue. It's probably not something that they ever considered before, or maybe it's something they considered, but it's bad to them for some reason. You know, they're prejudiced against it. But throughout their journey in the magical world, they're going to come to terms with that, embrace it, and actually integrate it into their personalities during this journey. So associated with this homeworld is the false goal. So the thing that the protagonist thinks that they need, or the thing that they want, that's going to fix their life, or so they think. Of course, they're completely wrong about this. But again, how do you see the unseen? Well, so the false goal is essentially the plan. It's about a third of the way into most movies, and it's going to be like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to go take these droids back to Princess Leia, and everything's going to be better. It's been a while since I've seen Star Wars. I know there's like a more specific goal than that, but again, it's whatever gets them going out of that homeworld. And then the true goal is something that, like, okay, you've been out here in the real world for, you know, however long the breadth of the story that's in the magical world. You're starting to realize that maybe things aren't exactly the way that you thought, which again is part of like the whole growing up process. And then you realize, okay, things weren't like this, they're like this, and it's the recalibration. Exactly. Dun, dun, dun. Plot thickens. It's like, it's referred to often as raising the stakes. So sometimes the protagonist didn't know that something was going to happen, or like that this was the situation instead of that. And this is when they find out, oh no, this is where everything stands a lot of times. Drink break for Graham. It's like my throat knew I was going to be talking all day. It's like it knew the little, well, I can't say that word. That's a naughty word. But I'm thinking a naughty word. Okay. So essentially, at this point, we now have the protagonist, their homeworld, fatal flaw, false goal, magical world, noble virtue, true goal. Not gonna sneeze. Not gonna sneeze. Coolness. All right, so those are like the basic concepts that we're working with. And fatal flaw and noble virtue, you want to make sure that try to keep them to like one word. Like a fatal flaw wouldn't necessarily be a fear of spiders, for example. I mean, you know, spiders are scary and but it's got to be something that really affects the person. So it wouldn't be something physical either, like, you know, well, someone's missing a limb or something like that, right? It's never about that. It's the way the person reacts to it. So, you know, you could have a story about somebody who becomes mobility impaired, but their journey is possibly towards being comfortable with themselves again, or doing something that they thought they were never going to be able to do again, but they use this altered circumstance, they overcome that obstacle. So the fatal flaw then is not what happened to them, it's the way they're approaching it. Noble virtue, again, just make sure that is the direct opposite of that as much as possible. So let me think, Moana here. So Moana's fatal flaw was that she wanted Maui to do the thing for her, right? So Grammatala says, go off. Yeah, like stubborn. Stubborn, for instance, would be a great fatal flaw. So somebody is, you know, holding tight to their old ways. And then a good opposite of that would be, you know, flexibility. So then, you know, your fatal flaw is you're set in your ways. You're not going to change. Your noble virtue is, yeah, I'm going to roll with the punches. I'm going to become open to new experiences, things like that. And that's a really great example because it's something that you really can see as, you know, changing someone's life for the positive. You know, that's something that a lot of people are going to look at. And, you know, obviously movies don't advertise themselves as being like, well, this is about this person's journey from stubbornness to flexibility. But that's what people are always glomming onto. It's not like, I love sci-fi. I write fantasy. It's never about the cool gadgetry or the cool animals that people are turning into. Okay, maybe a little bit there because that's super cool. But like really, it's about those emotional journeys. What is somebody learning? Because when we see that somebody else's journey reflects our own, we're like, I'm right there. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes like you see or read or play the right thing at the right time and it can totally change your life. And you can be literally anyone with basic storytelling ability. And you can do that if you find the right circumstances, the right kind of overall thing to do here. So what we can do here is just kind of take a walk through the overall, essentially yeah, exactly. So yeah, usually protagonist naive. Yep, a lot of times, you know, a good fatal flaw oftentimes is naivety or innocence, and somebody has to learn to temper that. Again, with, I'm trying not to talk about Wonder Woman. I just saw it recently and I'm so super excited about it. But, you know, it's something about, you know, she, without being too spoilery, she leaves the island, right? Goes off into the world, experiences new things, and her opinion becomes tempered by what she's seen. So she goes out here with this mindset, sees everything, her naivety about like innocence and aggression, they actually get kind of wrapped up into each other there, which is like you don't usually see, especially with female protagonists, but that was so super cool. Exactly. This is what they have to learn. So, all right, so Act 1. Act 1 is going to take place in the homeworld, and we have to be really careful to establish this really, really well, because once we leave the homeworld with the protagonist, we're not coming back, right? By the time that we come back, it's going to be the end of the journey. The protagonist is going to be an entirely different person, and we're going to do what's called like juxtaposing. Galaxy and Gray, something about themselves and the things around them. Yeah, exactly. You guys are, I'm sorry, I'm over explaining. You guys are totally picking this up, but just in case, wow, I just realized I'm talking a lot and I'm burping a lot. Gosh, I think I'm Rick from Rick and Morty. Yup. All right, moving along. Anyway, so Act 1, homeworld, got to establish it super well. Make sure that we just like hit this and then we're going to quit this. So the hook is that kind of like, yeah, oh, geez, Rick. Yeah, exactly. That's, I need a sidekick who says that. Where's my husband? Oh, wait, he's making swords or knives or something in the back type place. But do you want me to draw that? Oh my gosh. Please do. Absolutely, please do. All right, I will keep ranting in the meantime. So Act 1, homeworld. Act 2, magical world. So that's where we're going off into the great unknown, experiencing all kinds of different things. And then Act 3 can be a combination thereof. It really depends on your story, but essentially, even if you're coming back to the homeworld, it's changed by now. So, hook. That is the introduction to the story. It hooks in the audience from their own world. So even as you're telling the story about the protagonist kind of descending, it's often thought of as a descent just because of how Joseph Campbell, whose books are down there, kind of visualized it. So descent into magical world and then return. So this is actually hooking in the audience and kind of making them start to descend into your magical world. So it's like, you know, onions and parfait. It's all about layers. You guys will get that reference. I know you will. I trust you. I trust you to get that reference. So the hook. Yep. Oftentimes this is a big, big moment. So in an action movie, you're going to have some like pulse pounding chase scene or like pew, pew, pew or something like that. If it's a romance, you're going to have like some big, probably like a foreshadowing moment. Like Nyx is something that I'd qualify it as a romance because the main story is about what's happening in the characters' lives. It's about the emotions, and then whatever else is happening is kind of, it's there, but it's kind of secondary in importance. And that's an interesting thing. Romances have that kind of flipped. They catch a lot of shade for that, for no good reason, just because people don't like ladies. They don't like our stories. But anyway, moving on. So, hook, big moment. Make sure you're grabbing that audience and being like, no, you're going to pay attention to me. You're going to pay attention to me right now. So, but nicely, in a storytelling way. So moving on from that, that's going to be maybe like, if you're writing a screenplay, it'll be probably like the first 1 to 5 pages here. For a screenplay itself, if you're writing it, you want to make sure that it's like, that's like the most perfect page that you have, because that is the point at which someone is going to either pick it up and keep reading or pick it up and put it down. And I think it's true basically with any story. So Nyx, for instance, I wanted to create like a big moment right at the upfront, and then, you know, later on we'll kind of like wind it down and then kind of bring it back up again as far as like the tension is concerned. But there are enough hints in there about stuff that's to come that, as I was saying earlier, they'll kind of pay off down the line. So that's kind of a hook there. So Homeworld. Again, it's not again. I haven't told you this yet. It's not so much a single beat for the Homeworld as it is like this kind of entire zone. But coming right off the hook, we want to make sure that we again juxtapose that, you know, go from one end of the spectrum to the other. Either like, think of like Lord of the Rings, right? Fellowship of the Ring, big scary stuff right at the beginning, big story, and then it goes into the Shire and we get to meet Frodo and it's all pastoral and pretty and there are meadows and everybody's all peaceful and stuff like that. So you're kind of taking it back a step. You've got your audience at this point. They're hooked. So now you're going to kind of let them breathe and kind of look around and be like, all right, what's going on here in this Homeworld? And if you haven't seen the protagonist in the hook, which you may not, sometimes it's like, you know, with a different character or in a different time or something like that. So if you haven't met them in the hook, this is where we want to see the protagonist for the first time. And we are going to use this as a sort of baseline. So this anchors our story so that by the time we come all the way around to the end of it, we can compare those moments and see how they've grown. And for that, we really need to see their fatal flaw in action for the first time, right? So Moana, the first time that we see her, she's always listening to what people are saying to her, right? She does keep trying to run away to the ocean, but at a certain point, she kind of gives up and she's just like, you know, she's going to do what her parents want. So that's a good example of a Homeworld because, you know, she's very actively demonstrating that, like, okay, people are telling me what they're going to do. You never doubt that for a second she is part of this order, this ancient generation that is like, anyway, again with the ranting. And something poking me in the eye. Why, oh why does it poke me in the eye? Oh, the precious. Oh, why? Moving on. Yes, exactly. They're used to this arena. They are totally comfortable with it. In fact, they have outgrown it, right? They're ready to bust on out. They're a hermit crab. They're ready to find the new shell. So this is something that you're going to see probably up to about minute 10 or so. So you get usually about like 8 to 10 minutes in a movie to kind of really establish that, get a sense of the character. Graham, drink break. Thank you for bearing with me during all of these commercial interruptions. Actually, they're non-commercial interruptions. They're just me drinking stuff. Woot woot. All right. So after this comes foreshadowing. So about 10 minutes into a movie, usually, you get this little crisis that's kind of looking ahead. And it's like, so Moana, for instance. I wish I had my Moana notes up right now. I should probably bring them up, but I'm being a lazy butt, and I won't do it. Because I don't want to break Twitch because it wasn't working earlier, and I don't want to offend the Twitch monster. So the foreshadowing is like, you know, usually like looking ahead. It's probably, I think in Moana, it's actually the moment with the big song, and, you know, Papa Bounty Hunter is dancing around just being like, this is the way of the people, this is the way we do everything, and she's all like, I want to go, I want to see, and she can't. So, again, it's not the biggest conflict, it's not the central conflict, but it's something that's kind of like leading up to that. After that comes something that we call the inciting incident, which is a little bit redundant because both of those words essentially mean begin. Like, it begins the thing that happens. It's the happening. Like that terrible movie, only not. But the inciting incident is usually somebody from the magical world or somebody, yeah, I wanna see. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I won't do that again. So somebody from the outside world smacks into them and it's going to put them on the right track to the false goal. So again, they haven't made the false goal yet. They aren't quite there, but this is like Moana tries to go across the reef, right? And she is completely, oh my God, you're adorable. 100 out of 10 sing, yeah, right. If you don't watch out, I'll start singing in the squeaky voice that I learned from Disney. That's, yeah. That explains much of how I came to be the way I am, I feel. But anyway, so that scene is actually kind of interesting because, okay, so I'm going to use my lipstick is going to be Moana's boat, right? So if you have waves coming this way, like going like this, you want your ship, like the bow, to be going this way and cutting through them. Because if you go sideways, again, we're going to do top-down view now. So if you're coming sideways to it, like she kind of skids out of control once she gets over that first bit of the reef, that's exactly right what happened in the movie. The waves are going to hit your broadside, it's going to flip you, and you're going to be in big old trouble. Used to take sailing lessons, been in that situation, totally sucks, not one I recommend, but props to Disney for showing that super accurately. But the inciting incident is when she gets back to the beach, right? You know, Grandma Tala's there, you know, whatever happened, whatever just happened, blame it on the pig. And she doesn't have to tell Dad because she's super awesome, and she's Gram. Oh my God, Grandma Tala, so much love. So she, at that point, is a figure of the magical world. And we know this because, again, and I'm just kind of like ranting this like back through the video, which I'm sure that you guys, oh, done the picture? Let me see. Oh my God, that's one dress. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Cheers, I love it. Oh my gosh. Amazeballs. That is so fantastic. Alright, slight digression. Going back to Grandma Tala. So anyway, so we know that Grandma Tala is a part of the magical world because she has that tattoo on her back, right? She already is like, you know, when I die, I want to go back. I want to be part of them. The manta rays are all swimming around her. She's communing with them in whatever way, right? So she's acting like this agent of the magical world, even though she's part of Moana's family, because she's a character that is so super cool, and you see in a lot of things called the Fool. And the Fool is somebody who is typically very friendly, and they're the person that marches to their own drummer. So you always know them because they're the fruitcake, they're the weirdo, I'm both of these, and it's like the evil. Okay, I'm not evil, but anyway. So yeah, Grandma Tala, getting back on track, Fool marches to her own drummer, specifically says so, in fact, which is super duper cool. I loved that. And then she shows Moana the cave, right? And it's Moana's decision. She's the one who goes inside. Grandma Tala just shows her the way. And then we get something that's called the proto-magical world, which is a big fancy word that means it's the little version of the magical world. So you know how like swimming pools have like the deep end and the shallow end? This is like where we're getting into the shallow end and saying, okay, some magical-ish things are happening here, but not completely. And of course, magical doesn't necessarily, in Moana, yes, it does mean magical, but in a lot of other things, it's just, when we say magical, it means something that's a part of the magical world, so the world that's not the protagonist's own, it's the other world. And either way, it doesn't necessarily, you know, magic. Lots of air quotes. Air quote buddies fighting each other. Squaw, 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 squaw. I have no explanation for the things I do. Moving along. Proto-magical world. So the protagonist encounters new people, new forces. It's kind of like this last little calm before the storm that's going to like push them out of the homeworld here. So Moana, for instance, she goes in the cave. She sees the stuff happening. She realizes the heritage of her family. And by then, with that information, she feels like aircraft backseat. So by that point, with that knowledge that she picked up in the proto-magical world, with her, you know, kind of sidekick mentor type figure, sort of like her Obi-Wan Kenobi being Grandma Tala, you know, she's ready to go. And then it just takes that one more thing happening to push her over the edge. And in Moana, it's so great because that's what Grandma Tala tells her to do. She's like, go find Maui, get him to do this thing. And, you know, she's not necessarily saying, Moana, you can't do this. She's just, you know, thinking probably in her own terminology that, like, you know, her granddaughter, who is not super great at sailing, should maybe get some help before confronting, you know, Te Fiti and all of that ness. But it's the formation of that fall school, right? So Luke Skywalker at this point, this is when see, there are too many Star Wars movies now. It used to be so easy. When Graham was a kid, there were only 3 Star Wars movies. Now there are more, and it's very confusing. But in A New Hope, you know, Luke, Ben Kenobi, I don't know why I'm calling him Ben Kenobi's Obi-Wan. Anyway, Harrison Ford, giant walking carpet, droid monsters are ready to go leave the planet. And, you know, they've decided this is what they're going to go do. They're going to return the droids to the correct people. They're going to Alderaan, right? False goal. And it's usually like something like this. It's passing the buck and saying, I'm not going to do this. We're going to go take this to somebody else because I'm not super qualified to do this one thing. And, I mean, ultimately they're going to learn that, yes, you are qualified to do this. You're going to have the experience to do it, but they haven't gotten there yet. So that is our Act 1. And if you notice, Act 1, there are a lot more beats in this than the other one. So there's like 6 versus 4 or 3. And reason being, we're always mostly interested in how we're getting out of that like homeworld for the protagonist. So like, how is it that you get from your home where you've outgrown it, but you don't really quite know what to do next, into that next step of a journey? So this is why you have, you know, so much more time. It's essentially lining up the trajectory for the shot you're going to take. Act 2, magical world here. So fewer points because, again, it's like going to depend on your world, what exactly you're going to explore. So I'm thinking like Avatar, for instance. This is where like Jake Sully is really like investigating Pandora or something like that. So Joseph Campbell referred to it as like tests and trials. It's essentially where you're becoming acclimated to it, right? It's like the distance of traveling from land into the sea, learning to bob around and not sink, and act it out very well as well. So the switchback is the first big beat that we get in Act 2. And it's kind of halfway between. The end of Act 1 is here. The midpoint of your story is here. It's about in between those two. And this is where a protagonist is like pushed off course. So they're trying to go this way towards their false goal, and the world is saying, no, we're going this way instead. And they're just kind of trying to roll with the punches. In Force Awakens, this is, I think, when Rey and Finn run into Han Solo, but I'm not sure. I haven't, but, you know, they break out, and then something happens, and it kind of off course. At that point, they go off kind of on this new thing, try to find their way back towards that false goal. But along comes the midpoint, and that is no fun for anyone. This is when we get some truth revealed. Again, those heightened stakes. The protagonist realizes what's really going on. Sparkle stops shaking her computer because she realized she was banging it. I'm super, super sorry, kiddos. But the midpoint, again, is that like kind of pivot. So if we're making that 3-point arc where it's like beginning, middle, end, this is the middle here, so it's the pivot point. So everything is about to get turned onto its head. I meant to do that. Whoopsie. All right. So midpoint, truth revealed, everything turned on its head. Lady stops smacking herself in the hands. And the character keeps on going. Usually by this point, they've lost a lot of the arrogance that's pushed them along to this point, so they're actually kind of starting to get a little bit calibrated, a little bit fitting in with the magical world even. And then our next step after the midpoint is what I call the chimera. So it's something that's, it's essentially a double-edged sword in terms of storytelling. So it seems like, monkey in the middle, yeah. Monkey in the middle. That's a really good way of putting it. I'm assuming you're talking about the midpoint and not an actual monkey in the middle of something that you're laughing about. Although that could be happening, I don't know. If so, please give us details because we wish to know more about this immediately. Or you could be talking about Winston from Overwatch. Moving on. So, protagonists on track towards achieving their goal. It's the double-edged sword. Things seem perfect. Professor once explained this to me in this really perfect way, that it's the point where the protagonist would stop the movie if they could, because everything seems like it's on that right track. But everything is also right about to hit the fan. The bottom is about to drop out because this is the way of life. And after that comes the point that we call death. And death is not actual death, right? The protagonist is not going to actually kick it at this point. But it means that, like, doom is basically assured. So if this were like a lesser person on this same quest, they would just kind of give up at this point and just be like, nope, not doing it. I'm done. Just, you know, sit back, wait for death. Why not? But our protagonist is not really human, right? They're superhuman, or that's what we're supposed to believe. They're the every person, non-gender specific. So again, person. But yeah, So everything is going to go kablooey. The false goal is revealed as being completely false. The fatal flaw is referred to, or the fatal flaw is revealed as being as toxic and horrible as it was. And at this point, you know, the protagonist may have been trying to hold on to that quality and be like, no, because none of us wants to change, right? We just don't, we get kind of stuck in our own ways and we don't want to move on from stuff. And so that's what this whole journey is about, punching computers and finding the right journey here. So after death, we're actually right out of the magical world in the sense that at this point, the protagonist, to them, they almost might as well be the same because they can make their way around the magical world at this point. They've gone through some tests, some trials, they've picked up some new skills. They may have, if you're talking about a fantasy movie or something like that, they may have picked up some new weapons. I mean, sci-fi as well, obviously. And they may go through something that other people do call a big gloom. So it's just like, poopy, nothing's gonna get better. But after that point, a mentor comes along to sort of kick them in the butt and be like, no, you got the skills, you get up off your butt, and you go defeat a bad guy. Or, you know, bad guy. Air quote bunnies, fight! So, yeah, anyway, so that's the resurrection, right? Think of it as Mercy's big res. Heroes never die! That's that moment right there in your story. And finally, well, okay, almost finally. The finally before the finally that is the finally. Final, yeah. Final Fantasy. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway, comes the 0 hour, which is the next to last point in our story. And that's when the protagonist uses that noble virtue that they've integrated to save the day, and they prove that they have done away with this fatal flaw forever, right? Moana doesn't need anybody else by that point in her story. She doesn't need Maui's help. At this point, the sea, which has been protecting her all along too, for going back to Moana randomly here, I don't know why, because I love the movie and it's amazing. But essentially, you know, she is the one that says to the sea, who has been protecting her and who tossed Maui back up on the boat when he was going to leave, who darted him in the butt and stuff like that. Oh, yeah, exactly. Reaper's response, die, die, die. So that's basically the antagonist, right? But Mercy will win, because Mercy always wins. Unless you shoot her in the head because she's squishy. But anywho. So the 0 hour protagonist kind of went a little off track. Thought of Reaper, thought of Ultimates, thought of Overwatch, went, but Moana tells the sea to stand aside, right? She doesn't need it to protect her anymore because heroes never dead. Yes, that's very true. That's very true. Also now Overwatch. But the sea stands aside, and Moana goes through it, and she's, you know, facing down Tika, which should be death, right? Anybody else would not actively keep going in this situation, but she knows, she's the one who at this point, she sees why it has to be her, because Maui didn't understand the power of Te Fiti, otherwise he wouldn't have taken it, so it has to be Moana. She's got to be the one to give it back. In 0 hour for Luke Skywalker, he's saying, I don't need this targeting equipment, I've integrated the Force, I know, yeah, I want to play Overwatch 2, Galaxina, seriously. Okay, we're almost done here, though, but anywho, so 0 hour, protagonist uses noble virtue to save the day. Luke Skywalker says, nope, I got the Force. I don't need this targeting computer. It's something that they're in full confidence of their new abilities, whatever that happens to be. And blah, 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 proves fatal flaw has been excised once and for all. And then comes the coda, which if anybody here plays music, don't know if you do, right? The story is repeating, and then we're at our very end here. All of those little threads get like kind of wrapped up, and finally the protagonist is shown in their new life. If we're looking at a situation like, say, I don't know, the Hunger Games, right? So you have another story that's coming after that. You get story threads that are all wrapped up, but you also get that hint of what's to come. So in that book, for instance, excuse me.
Excuse me? Oh, something happened to my voice. Oh, this is bad. I just hiccuped and it went up an octave. I don't know what to do. So, whoa.
Anyway, I really don't know where I was going with that, and then I kind of went into a weird voice there. Thank you very much for the excusal. Protagonist, oh, Hunger Games, that's where we're going. So we know that she survives, right? So Katniss wanted to originally, she just wants, you remind me of Donald Duck. You know, I thank you for that comparison. I really appreciate it. All my life I just wanted to be an animated character, so maybe someday I will achieve that goal. But in the beginning of the Hunger Games, right, Katniss wants to survive because, you know, she wants to survive to take care of her family. You know, Prim needs her sometimes catatonic mom needs her. She's got to provide for the family, so she has to make it out. And her journey is from wanting to kind of like kick the poop out of PETA as being like, you know, one of the other ones, knowing she has to do that to survive, and saying, no, I'm just going to buck this entire system. I'm going to stick it to you. You have to play this my way because I'm going to save him. I'm going to protect him. So this is great. This should be fantastic. But then it's like he realizes that she's been putting a lot of this, like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to punch my mic. If you have no eardrums left, I'm sorry. I flail too much. That's my problem. So he's, you know, finds out at the very end that she's been putting a lot of this on, and, oh, gutted. Oh, it's so awful. You feel so badly for him. You feel so badly for her. You feel badly for everyone. It's a terrible, corrupt dystopia, but that's where you get the energy for people coming into the next story, right? End of Harry Potter. He's like going off for summer vacation, but he's coming back for the next year. So it gets you back in that way. So the coda actually acts kind of like a hook again, coming back around and kind of like, you know, sealing off the story, but again, giving you room to chain on to the next story after that. So yeah, that's essentially how you build a story. And there are different proportions. Like if you're going to tell a screenplay that's like, typically screenplays are like 90 to 120 minutes. Yeah, Harry Potter. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban staff. Yeah, I'll try to post that actually on Twitter if I can. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to post a PDF. I'm not sure. But I'll see what I can do about getting that up. But yeah. So that's how you build a story. So 90 to 120 pages, typically standard. 1 page equals 1 minute of airtime. So you know that a typical movie runs between usually an hour and a half to 2 hours. Nowadays it can be as long as 2.5 hours, but that's if you have like, you know, Wonder Woman's director and budget and studio and blah, 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 blah. Oh, I won't spoiler anything. Don't worry. It's from book 3. So no spoilers. Spoiler-free zone as far as that's concerned. Mostly because the books are very long as they go on. And so I haven't gone through them and done structure stuff yet, but still. So anyway, so we've been streaming for about an hour and 15 minutes here. And for some reason, my voice is starting to go out a little bit. I don't know why. But anywho, so I'm probably gonna call it right here. But anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I see there are several people here. I'm assuming you already follow me on the Twitter and on the YouTubes. And if not, please do so, because then you will get to see more stuff, mostly just involving me dancing around and talking to myself. But I did notice that, like, in the minutes that I was looking away from YouTube, like, other people have subscribed, and I'm up over 150 subs. What up? Sorry for squeaking, I just so excited. Anyway, well, that frog got back in my throat again. I must have climbed back in there when I wasn't looking. But anywho, so again, thank you so much for watching. You guys are fantastic. I'm sorry I can't keep going on longer here, but if you like this stream, let me know, and we can do more of such streams. And maybe Graham will have a little throat candy first, so that she can keep talking for longer than an hour and 15 minutes straight. Just saying. But yeah. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely, lovely, lovely rest of your weekend, and I will see you guys again soon for more fun and awesomeness. So thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!